Why does it seem like masculinity is shunned lately?
I think modern men are being made to pay for the advantages that their fathers and grandfathers had. And in a world in which we...
By the way, I don't think masculinity is shunned. I think that a lot of people view masculinity as being aggressive and hostile, and I don't think that's real masculinity. Like, in my opinion, masculinity is Aragorn. It's not Andrew Tate.
Moved from a brawn-based to a brain-based economy, and you don't need protectors and providers that much. We've allowed women to access education and employment and become socioeconomically viable on their own. They literally don't need no man. For many of the women, 2 women for every 1 man completing a 4-year US college degree. Women aged 21 to 29 earn £1,111 more than men on average. Wow. So they're literally like ahead by most of the key objective metrics that people under the age of 30 care about.
Jesus.
What's the role for men in that? And it's also, there's a current trend of it being cool to dunk on whoever was seen to have had the advantages in the past, right?
This is a problem. I think that he brings up a really good point about this, is that the whole idea of like original sin, where it's like, you know, women or like people hating like men or like white people or something like that, or straight people, like any type of resentment that's being leveraged at somebody for something that they didn't directly do is almost always a bad idea. I can't think of a single instance where it's not. It's basically, I mean, like, they wrote a whole book about it. People still read the book. It's called the Bible. That's why original sin was bad and Jesus had to come in. That's why it's bad. It's original sin. Exactly, yes.
Straight white male syndrome. Like, straight that had advantages in the past because people who are homosexual were mistreated. Fucking Alan Turing was chemically castrated. White, slavery wasn't that long ago. Like, yes, also had some benefits. Male, women weren't allowed to go to university until not so long ago. They were, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
He's right.
But it uses errors of the past to make compensations in the present. And that fundamentally means that, like, men, as one of the biggest groups that have seemed to have had some kind of benefit, immediately get dunked to the bottom of the pile. And yet, if you look even remotely closely at the outcomes that lots of guys are getting, I don't think that there's much evidence that guys are flourishing at the moment. Like,
I think here's a really good way to tell whether guys are doing well in society now or not. Every single time that people are talking about robot companions, it's always about robot girlfriends and not robot boyfriends. I think that says a lot.
I think it was the first quarter of last year. Like 33% of new CEOs were female. And that was heralded as like new frontier, but until it's at 50%, it doesn't matter. It's like, oh, God. Do 50% of women want to be CEOs? Like, really? Is that a life that you aspire to? I don't fucking aspire to be a CEO, and I own my own company. I don't want to be a CEO. It sounds like it sucks. I'm looking forward to the day when someone else steps in and takes that role. So guys had it good in some ways for a while, and it's just like,
well, that's not even a question, right? Like, I mean, men, it's not even a question that, like, if you're a white guy, you historically had massive fucking advantages. Like, yeah, obviously. Now, I'm not talking about like today, but I'm talking about like 50 years ago, even 100 years ago. Absolutely. 150 years ago. Whoa. Only in the US? Well, yeah, I'm not talking about why the fuck would I be talking about Europe? I don't live in Europe.
It's like cultural reparations for men to pay this fine that certain areas of the world believe that they owe to people. And that means that, like, mistreating them or considering them to be in a privileged position is something that everybody should focus on.
I don't think that that's the entire picture. I think that also there is a culture that we have, like in Western society, where it's generally okay to shit on people who you think are in a position that's above you. It's kind of what I said, is that you can eat the rich, but you can't eat the poor. A lot of fat girls can get together and talk about skinny bitches, but if skinny girls get together and talk about fat girls, they're mean. You know, like, men feel like they can say bad things. You know, men are trash is fine. It's a joke. But whenever men say that, then they should be, you know, they're like an awful person or whatever. They're like, oh, I wonder if he beats his wife. Something like that. There are so many instances where this is the case, and I think that in almost every single instance, the idea of punching up is viewed to be as some sort of like noble thing to do. And I think that that's why it happens with all of these instances. It's because that, and this is something that's beyond like being a guy or like being a race. I think this is with everything. It's the same as like, people feel like it's more comfortable to joke around with somebody for being really tall versus being really short, like as a guy. And why is that? Well, because being, really short is seen as a bad thing, as not in the same way that being really tall is. No matters. Yeah, it's the culture of punching up. Exactly. Yeah, and that's why people think, again, that's why people think it's okay to steal from Walmart. Because it's like, oh, well, Walmart's a big company, I can do that. It's, again, another like moral justification. And this is something that's prevalent throughout all of society.
Navigate that as a guy.
Not self-pitying, I think. Like, would it have been easier as a guy to have been born 50 years ago?
Yeah.
Maybe. Maybe. Because you would have been able to out-earn and out-educate most of the women in your local village or whatever pretty easily, because 50 years ago was when Title IX was introduced, which was to get more women into universities. So you would have been the highest performing person, and hypergamy would have allowed you to have risen to the top, and more women would have found you attractive. But it's not. And pitying yourself or pitying the world, or like screaming and creating a victim mindset around yourself, is literally just giving the power to somebody else.
Holy fuck. Holy fuck. Absolutely. Abso-fucking-lutely. Holy shit. Finally. Yes, I wish more people would say this. He's completely right. Yeah, it doesn't matter how hard you think it is. Whenever you wake up the next day, you're still where you are. You can spend all day thinking about, I wish it was whatever, 150 years ago. It would have been so easier. Yeah, but it's not, so shut the fuck up. It's on you, yeah.
Alex's thing, right? It's like, wherever you point the finger of blame, or wherever you point the finger of responsibility is where you point the finger of power. It's like, if you do that, it's like, this is you. It's only you that's going to come and save you with regards to this. So navigating it is difficult. I think
and this is the problem, because like a lot of people, this type of advice is actually so unpopular nowadays, because people on the internet are trying to create an onion of protection layers against personal accountability. They want to figure out all of the different ways that society is out to get them, and why it's society's fault that they're not getting a job and instead they're jerking off to hentai all day and playing League of Legends. Well, you can do that, but it's not really going to improve your life. And at a certain point, maybe a little bit of that might just be your fault. And that's why you see a lot of the different people that are popular for giving like lifestyle advice on the internet generally give a lot of that lifestyle advice in a passive tense. It's like, well, society is rigged against you, and it's not fair, and this isn't, like you can't do this, and these things are harder for people like you to do. People are always looking for a reason why it's somebody else's fault. It's victim mentality. It's learned helplessness. Yeah, it is. It is. Absolutely it is. Yeah, it's not your fault. Exactly.
Open and honest as a guy as well. Like, look, it's fucking tough. It's tough in many, many ways. And even if it looks like guys have got it all sorted from the outside, I think that there are so many that are struggling. And that's something that there needs to be a big cultural shift around.
It's not going to happen because men are seen as the providers and the protectors of society. And you don't want to have a provider and protector bitching and crying and getting depression and feeling sad, because it makes everybody else who they're protecting feel insecure. That's the reality. That's what's not going to happen. You're never going to expect people and like guys to be able to like come out with their feelings, and people are not going to care. Yeah, I don't want to fight a bear. Yeah, you might not, but that's still what's going to happen. Stop being a bitch. Yeah, it's exactly what's happening. It is what's happening. And like guys are not going to get like, I think that people fall into the trap of trying to be seen on social media, and it is so mentally corrosive that I don't think that anybody realizes how bad it is. because people are constantly trying to get other people to validate their concerns and validate their struggles, validate their life choices, everything like that. Man up, yeah. And like the thing is that you can say man up and it's like, oh, this is toxic masculinity, this is all this other stuff. It's not going to change. People are still going to say that, and they're still going to hold you to that. And the society, it's not going to, like, it's not like we're going to have a societal shift where people don't expect this out of men. This is built into us on a biological level. That's why men are bigger and stronger than women. That's all there is to it. It's not going to change.
It's a cultural shift.
So you talk about suppressing men, right? That's where, what's the word that you use?
What do you mean?
Like how masculinity and men, like you go into war mode, and then when you're not in war mode, you're suppressed or something like that.
I'm not sure if that's me.
Well, you used a different word rather than suppressed. Okay. How like masculinity or whatever is diminishing.
Okay.
Or
okay.
how it's a point right now where like it's kind of being hidden.
Okay, I would say it's being eroded. Yeah, for sure.
Eroded.
Yeah.
Sure. So that is a product of the environment that we're in.
Mm-hmm.
So if that is the case, you can't necessarily change the environment. No government body is going to step in and change the environment. And that's just going to be a byproduct of the environment that we are placed in. How do you then necessarily like change that? Like, are you...
It's unhealthy to even try to change the world. I think that the moment that somebody puts the mantle on and they say, I have to change the world, and like my job is to change the way that people think and change the world and change the way that society sees things, this was never going to work. Like, just stop it. Just stop doing this. Like, and it has worked in the past, and people will be like, oh yeah, well, look at Gandhi or something like that. You're not Gandhi. Stop it. Fucking stop it. Gandhi wasn't watching motivational videos on YouTube of how to be a man. Okay, it didn't happen. So it's like just take that mentality and throw it in the garbage. Just change yourself. The moment that somebody, in my opinion, the moment that somebody lets go of the perceived obligation that they have to change the world is the moment where that person can truly be happy. Because then they stop trying to seek approval or validation from other things and other people.
You're supposed to just accept the fact that it's an issue. Okay, it's an issue.
Control
and it's
yourself.
because
Yeah,
of
you can only change
external
yourself.
factors that we can't necessarily change. And if you look at data, it shows that, like you said, or you've claimed or whatever, testosterone is like decreasing and masculinity is decreasing and stuff like this. What do you do about it?
Yeah, testosterone's dropped 0.1% every month since 1950.
Wow, what the fuck?
That's the way that people get prescribed TRT from doctors.
Oh my God.
So a lot of the time, there's a bunch of places in Austin that do this.
Oh.
Doctors will use the normal range for testosterone levels for men from 1950 to gauge off whether or not you've got low testosterone.
Right.
Could they have just been high in 1950, or is it like...
No, it's just, well, maybe, I don't know. I guess we didn't have the levels in like 1850, but I would want to know what happened between 1850 and 1950 for us to be like, oh, and men all had this huge surge in testosterone. That doesn't seem like it's going to be too likely.
It was in Austin?
But
Really?
yeah, dude, I don't disagree. Like, if any other group has a problem, we ask, what can we do to fix society? If men have a problem, we say, what is it that men are doing where they can't fix themselves? Like, we spend billions and billions in taxpayer-funded money to set up charities and initiatives and research to
This is true, by the way, is that men have way less access to like resources like shelters and stuff like that than women do. It's just true.
And help groups that are struggling.
Yep.
Like, the biggest risk to a man under the age of 30...
Mental health? Yeah, nobody gives a shit about a guy's mental health. It's because, and the reason why is because men are disposable. That's why men go out and fight wars. You think about it from, like, again, a biological perspective. How many men does it take to repopulate a village versus women? It's pretty easy for a guy to go fuck 3 girls. And, it's a lot harder for a girl to go and have 3 kids at the same time. That's just how it is. It's biological. We're not going to, like, unwire this. It's not going to, like, oh, well, at a certain point... this is not going to be how people think about things anymore. No, it's not. That's just how it is. I think that as a guy, like, here's the thing. It's like guys have a lot of shit that's like really kind of like bad. But I'll tell you one thing. I am so glad I'm a guy. I am. I feel so lucky that I'm a guy and not a girl. I would much rather have the problems that men have than the problems that women have. It's like and this is the thing, right? Is we can all talk about how hard it is for men, but at the end of the day, everybody's saying same, right?
His own mortality are literally the hands that he has.
Yeah.
Like, you're more likely to die by suicide than any other way under the age of 30. By
That's
18
crazy.
to 30.
Holy shit.
Like, that's a big deal.
Wow.
It's a fucking big deal. That doesn't sound like privilege to me. Oh, well, guys have had it good for so long. Oh, yeah, well, like, fucking apart from the war and the dangerous jobs, and the, like, 40% of us, only 40% of us reproducing. It's like 60% of men not reproducing.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't sound very good. In terms of how you can at least begin to change the culture around it, I think that accepting that guys are struggling and, like, changing the narrative, like the deadbeat dad, like the Homer Simpson, the Peter Griffin, the, like, sort of stupid father role. If you ever watch any kids TV show as well, it's always...
I'm going to be honest. Like, Homer Simpson plays and spends time with his kids. He's got a stable job. He doesn't cheat on his wife. He owns a home. He's a law-abiding citizen. I think Homer Simpson's kind of a G. Yeah, I'm going to be real. Like, that's not so bad after all.
That the boys are kind of boisterous and clumsy and try to sort of cheat or use their size or their group numbers in some way, and the girls are smart and, like, clever and more dexterous, and they end up winning because they're more, like, noble and inventive in the way that they come up with stuff. It's like, all right, well, what's the subtext that tells young boys? Not to say that, like, girls shouldn't win shit, like they should, but I'm not convinced that, like, an entire generation of people that were brought up on Homer Simpson and Peter Griffin have got, like, high expectations for themselves. Again,
I think that he brings up a good point, though, is that it is disappointing that a lot of the depictions of men and, like, fathers in, like, sitcoms is usually the dad is a fucking idiot, right? Or there's something wrong with him. And I think, again, this goes back to the culture. Because, like, Homer Simpson is a G, but at the same time, he's also a joke. And that's it. Yeah, loser, deadbeat job, something like that, right? And I think that's very... It's a bad role model, right? There it is. It's a bad role model.
if you're taking your role models from that. And this is one of the other things that come across. Like, look, should you really be looking to Homer Simpson and Peter Griffin for your, like, father role model advice? Probably not. But in a world that's got more...
Yeah, it's got a lot of culture. It's still in the culture, right? And, like, everybody knows what they are.
single-parent households than ever before, and more absent father figures than ever before, where should they look? Like, all of the people that had problems with Jordan Peterson's ascension or Andrew Tate's ascension, where should the guys that followed them got their role models from? Genuine question. Where should...
I don't think Jordan Peterson's a bad guy. I don't. I think he's a good guy. Like, there's nothing like... I feel like Jordan Peterson is... Everybody thinks that, like, he's, like, this crazy extreme person. Either he's saving Western society or he's literally a Nazi. I think it's neither. I think he's just an average guy who gives pretty good common sense advice. He does. Like, yeah, it's fine. It's a regular guy. Yeah, he's smart. Yeah, he's smart. Like, I don't think he's, like, not... Is like, are we going to be reading about Jordan Peterson 100 years from now? Probably not. Maybe not, right? But, like, at the same time, I think he's giving a lot of contemporary good advice. He's a balanced person. Yeah, exactly. Bro, he's very, very smart. I didn't say he's not. Yeah, I mean, there's Jordan Peterson is, what do you call it? Is the dad many kids need? Yeah, exactly. Like, somebody like Andrew Tate, like, I think that's... I think that's bullshit, right? I mean, Andrew, like, what the fuck is this? Like, that's ridiculous. But it was Jordan Peterson. I feel like is fine. He got crucified because he cares for young males to prosper. I don't know, but I'm just saying that's what my opinion is.
Did they? Mm-hmm. Well, they should have got it from dad. What if dad wasn't at home? Because that's a huge percentage of young boys. They should have got it from... I'm yet to hear from the people that are usually critical about that stuff, like, a good answer. To hear someone say, yeah, like, whatever fucking initiative this is, sports stars or superheroes or something. It's like, all right, well, like, that's what people see their public figures on the internet as. They see them as, like, what, thought leaders in some way or another, or a surrogate father figure.
Yeah, I think this is a big problem, and it's become more of a problem over the years. I think he brings up a lot of really good points, and I'm glad that, like, I think that more guys need to say the fact that, like, a lot of guys, and this is popular on the internet, people get together. There's a video, give it a like. I saw this, got recommended to me, and I thought it'd be interesting to watch and listen to. Thought leader is such a red flag word. Is it a bad word? I mean, I feel like it's just a word, right? I don't know. Tate's old men's rights argument wrapped in obnoxiousness and misogyny. I don't think Andrew Tate is like all of his advice is bad. I feel like all of his advice around women is bad. Like, I pretty much think that, like, universally it pretty much all is. Outside of that, it's hit or miss, right? It was a good video. Yeah, I think so too. Low T? Yeah, I don't know about low T. I've never had my testosterone checked. Actually, that's not true. I did maybe like 5 years ago or something like that. But other than that, I've never had it checked or anything like that. With hearing that? Yeah, also angry over words. Being traditionalist does not mean hating women. Yeah, I think so too. There's studies that show boys with two dads have more masculine inclinations. Well, yeah, it would make sense, right? Because they have a guy around them. But anyway, I think, like, as a guy, a lot of people like to blame society, but the truth is that nobody cares. Like, there can be a lot of things that are against you, and they exist, and it's unfair, and it shouldn't be like that, but it is. And so you either deal with it or you don't, right? That's it. A lot of people take pair Peterson and Tate, and Peterson actively dislikes Tate. I don't know. Remember how Reddit equals hive mind? The hive mind has to have a thought leader who makes members of the hive upset whenever it's noticed. Well, if the thoughts are not being agreed upon by enough people in the hive, then they get a new queen, right? That's just how things go. You have to work through despite it. Yeah, exactly. And I also think that, like, guys should stop trying to, like, be emotionally seen, and you just need to deal with your own emotions yourself. I don't think that guys should try to put that on, like, their girlfriend or anything like that. I just feel like it's too risky, man. It's too risky, and it's better to just keep that to yourself and work through it on your own. What? Yeah. No, hey guys, I know this is a really unpop man up. Yeah. That's really what Tate says? Yeah, I agree with him. I think it sucks. It shouldn't be like that. Like, I think that whenever I say something like this, people think that I'm, like, celebrating it. No, I'm not. I think it's bad, but I think it's also true. Let's have an L take. Well, I mean, you can think it's an L take or not, and there's some people who might not have this experience, but I feel like it happens enough frequently. It's not something I'd really give advice on people to do. How do you still have power? What the fuck? Austin's out? Oh, I didn't even know that. That mentality is why suicide rate is so high. Call it whatever you want. Like, I see, it's not important for me for this to sound like it's the right thing to say. I don't care about whether you think it sounds like the right way to say. I'm talking about, this is what I think is the best advice to tell somebody. This is what I think is realistic. It's not about whether I want it to be true or not. We got to man up, guys. Yeah, got to man up. There it is.